All right, I believe we're live. So, okay, folks, let's go get this shindig started. Today's date, October 31st, 2018. Happy Halloween, everybody, and this is how the frack we got here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan, and as you usually see me do these most of things, we are simply going to go ahead and really take today's last week's events and really try to make sense of this all. As much as humanly possible as we will try. I'm going to be honest with you. It seems, before I really get into this, it seems like, as I said, what I said was, I'll say it once before and I'll say it again. It seems like Trump, and I know I talk about Trump. There's a lot of people that say, Will, all you do is talk about Trump. I try not to, but let's be honest. It's like the dude looks at himself, sees how dumb he is or how stupid he is, and he tries to outdo himself. I don't know what to tell you. It's almost like somebody at the White House is not doing their child care duties. That's all I'm saying. But he's here. We're stuck with him. So let's go ahead and get after it. So let's go ahead and knock this out. I'm pretty sure by now, if you're in any state whatsoever, you pretty much have seen every election commercial out there pertaining to your representative, your senator, only because, of course, it's the midterm elections, which midterm elections will start next week. Since they do start next week, of course, at this point, this is where your politician actually does the work that they should have been doing their entire term, because they want to stay in power. Because let's be honest, the politician gets paid more than an average professional player does. They just don't do it in public. That being said, we've dealt with a Republican president and we've dealt with a Republican Congress. And all I gotta say is, for all those that voted, do you feel like you're winning yet? I'm just asking. Because have you seen a bump in your paycheck? Have you seen better health care? I mean, have you been able to, save up for that vacation? Have you been able to, put away some money? No? Well, that sucks. But then again, you vote a Republican, so therefore you brought this upon yourself. Oh, hey, BJ, how's it going? Did they let the toddler out the crib again? They did. And it's almost in the same sense that the toddler decided to outdo himself, much like Chucky does on Rugrats when Tommy's not around. I feel old because I don't know how many people are going to get the Rugrats reference. If you do, let me know. If not, I know my age. But to go right back into this, so how do we start with Trump? Trump is letting us know of a herd that is coming to the U.S. It is a massive herd. It is a caravan. And every time he has said that, it has just annoyed me, because he is talking about the massive migration of individuals who are coming from Central America to basically the U.S. And he's making it sound like the herd from The Walking Dead. It's almost like he's pretty much saying Negan and the Saviors are coming to our door and there's not shit we can do about it. That is the way he is honestly portraying this. And here's the thing about this, and here's the thing that I've been trying to find information about, because the simple fact of the matter is, let me tell you what this fucker has done. And I say fucker because, oh, by the way, this is an adult podcast with adult nature, with adult content, so viewer discretion advised. I know I usually do that at the beginning of my podcast. I apologize. I just wanted to go ahead and get after it. But what Trump has done, because like I said, with this massive caravan, and I hate saying that because caravan makes it sound like these people are just horrible. And let me go ahead and say this. We are a nation of immigrants. Nobody can. The only people that can sit there and say that they're truly from here are Native Americans, in my opinion. Only Native Americans can claim that they were here. As far as my race is concerned, that we got picked the fuck up. We got picked the fuck up. We got dropped off here. Our branches come from that. Now, and as far as everybody else goes, they all came from somewhere else. We are a nation of immigrants. We of all countries should not be literal fascists when other people want to come and do the same thing. We can't sit there and say that, toward minorities of brown countries, you're not allowed, but you want to sit there and turn around and let Russia and Poland and all the other so-called white countries allow their immigration people in? Sure, no problem. And you're right, Angie, asylum is not a caravan. It's not. They have come to seek political asylum because of where they came from is war-torn countries. And asylum, for all those that don't know what that is, asylum is basically if you came from a country fearing for your life, you're able to come to a port of entry in the United States and request asylum. And usually 9 times out of 10, it's granted to you as an immigrant because it's not like America is full. I mean, if anybody's been to the Midwest, trust me, we got room. We have room for individuals. So that's not the problem. The problem is it's fear. And I don't mean to go into this rant, but it's the only way I can say it. It is fucking fear that Trump is putting out there. He is basically saying, well, the worst of these people are gang members and murderers. And does this sound really familiar? 2016, Mexico sending all of their worst. They're sending their killers, their rapists, their bad dudes, bad hombres. Speech sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Except in this case, he's going to point it out as saying, well, it's about these people. And again, that's the nationalist. See, I no longer am going to call him Agent Orange. I'm going to call him now Mr. Nationalist because he's a nationalist. He has came out and said he was, even though he himself did not understand the term, is actually more geared toward white supremacy and racism. And if he did, he's now coming out loud and saying it. So Mr. Nationalist is now showing fascist tendencies. And doing so, he now, aside from sending troops, which at the point of this podcast, I couldn't find the article fast enough. So it's being reported that instead of, sending actual aid to these migrant people, he's sending the army. And he said he's going to send 15,000 troops. 2 problems. One, by now every news outlet has reported this. We've actually got 14,000 troops in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan to combat ISIS. 14,000 troops. You're going to send 15,000 troops to the U.S. border. So you're going to tell me that you're going to send, if not more, but equal to the amount of armed forces you have overseas that you're going to send to our border to do what exactly? Because here's where the fascism comes in for me. The fascism comes in for me that instead of sending these people, department heads and lawyers who are in immigration reform, instead of sending them down there to help these people, you rather show a show of force to turn around and send them back home. That to me is where he truly shows to me Hitler tendencies. He shows Hitler tendencies. He's actually went out. He's actually done everything so far in Hitler playbook. BJ, they could have left us in Wakanda. Yeah, they could have. But at the same time, I can go into a whole nother subject of really the fact of the slave trade and institution, how we got here. I can go into that's a whole nother subject I could go into that I can spend about 3 hours on. And Angie, a waste of time and money. It's a waste of time, money, and resources. Because even the armed forces, as they reported, was like, why the fuck are we going down here to people who are walking thousands of miles just to find a better life? We are a nation of immigrants. Do we forget what's written on Ellis Island? Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. It didn't sit there and say with an asterisk anywhere, except people south of the border. I didn't see that anywhere. But anyway, okay, so Frozen. Mention Trump's name once, and they already come out to get you. That's it. Fuck you, Mr. Nationalist. We still gonna keep going. All right, so So basically, guys, what I'm actually going to bring up, and I apologize for this because, so actually, so let me get this. I'm trying to get this video up because, like I said, Mr. Nationalist decided that he's going to up his ante. How is he going to up his ante? Perhaps you may want to ask. Well, like I said, aside from him explaining as far as trying to keep immigrants from crossing the border, he decided that he's going to rewrite the 14th Amendment. Now, for all those that don't know what the 14th Amendment is, the 14th Amendment is pretty much anybody who is born in the U.S. is guaranteed U.S. citizenship. So, you want to know what Baby Huey said? Well, I keep saying Baby Huey, but that's an insult to Baby Huey. So let me tell you what Mr. Nationalist said about that 14th Amendment.
Birthright citizenship is a very, very important subject. In my opinion, it's much less complex than people think. I think it says it very loud and clear in the Constitution that you don't have to go through the process of whatever they're talking about. And by the way, this is not a constitutional amendment. You don't need a constitutional amendment for birthright citizenship. I believe that you can have a simple vote in Congress, or it's even possible, in my opinion, this is after meeting with some very talented legal scholars, that you can do it through an executive order. Now, I'd rather do it through Congress because that's permanent, but we can certainly do it through, I really believe we can do it through executive order. One other thing, if President Obama can get DACA approved, if you look at DACA, where he actually said, well, this isn't legal or this I can't do, but I'll do it anyway. And then he gets a judge to approve it. And it'll ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court, I hope quickly. But certainly if he can do DACA, we can do this by executive order. With that being said, I think Congress will ultimately act, but I may very well do it.
Yep. I can't make that up. Okay. For all those that are wondering, yes, Angie, he can be that stupid. BJ, isn't he trying to rewrite 13th Amendment too? Yeah, but I'll get in that momentarily. So again, the 14th Amendment, if you are born in the U.S., you are guaranteed U.S. citizenship. A few things wrong with that, President Trump, Mr. Nationalist. One, it's a constitutional amendment. Executive order does not allow you to turn around and treat the Constitution like your own goddamn etch-sketch. You cannot sit there, look at the Constitution, say you don't like something, scribble it out, and then use executive order. Executive orders only allow you to put intentions into law. They don't allow you to actually make it into law. So the whole comparison of, using Barack Obama and DACA, okay, again, big ass problem. DACA is pretty much the DREAM Act. DREAM Act is where basically there was a path to citizenship for immigrants, whether they served the military or not. So for all those that don't know what DACA was never a constitutional amendment. It was simply an executive order to induce an act, which eventually did get ratified through Congress, albeit a whole lot of red tape, because the insinuation was that President Obama pretty much overrode the Constitution, which I find it funny that President Obama at that time was before he was president, he was a constitutional teacher. And he taught constitutional law and was the editor of the Law Review. So for a man who was so well versed in the Constitution, how could he fucking break it? That's almost like going to a driver instructor and saying, "You're not driver instructor," although he has literally been tested and certified. But you, who have no experience in much of anything, is going to sit there and say, "I can do it because I can." No. Again, DACA was basically, I keep saying DACA, so basically the DREAM Act, which was DACA, was eventually ratified to where a plan of path to citizenship was taken, which was kind of funny that the same act that he's talking about was the same one he undid in his first year in office. I'm not saying he's got amnesia, but I'm like, your whole first term is basically undoing everything the black guy did. But again, it's not a comparison because one would actually went through the process of being ratified and being made into action. What Mr. National doesn't realize is that the simple fact of the matter is, no, your executive order won't do shit against an amendment. The only way that you can change anything to an amendment is through Congress, which is basically you adding an amendment to the amendment. So therefore, aside from him being a fucking idiot, he's just there and say scholars have told him, when every other legal scholar and constitutional lawyer has already sat there and said many a time, no, Mr. Trump, you can't do it on your own. You can't sit there just because you thought you could, you couldn't. And at the same time, if the 14th Amendment was ever removed, that basically means that anybody in the U.S. is no longer a U.S. citizen. And I mean anybody, even if you were born here. So again, if that amendment was removed, we are all illegal immigrants. And therefore, so would be Trump. Although the funny part is, if the 14th Amendment was removed, he would also be an illegal immigrant. He would also still be an idiot, but he would still be an illegal immigrant. The whole office is exhausting. It is, I mean, yes, it can be exhausting, Angie. You're right. It can be exhausting just because the fact of the matter is, it shows Mr. Nationalist inexperience. It shows the fact that he doesn't care. It shows the fact that he wants to be the dictator that he dreams of so bad that he is willing to wreck democracy as we know it. And BJ, but if they took away birthright citizenship, wouldn't both he and Melania be on the way out? Shit, Melania would be out faster than him. I mean, she was here on a work visa, and yet she's been on a work visa. You realize, here's the funny thing before I go to the next story. The first hostage, the first lady, was initially on a work visa. She wasn't an American citizen until after she married her sugar daddy. And then her parents, through chain migration, because Melania was an American citizen, they also became American citizens through the very same process Agent Orange wanted to shut down so badly. So again, it was okay for my wife and my family, but not okay for yours. So the reason why I bring that up is because, like I said, with him wanting to go ahead and introduce this legislation, because like I said, the only way anything can change, seriously, as far as them wanting to do anything, would be that they have to introduce legislation. So guess who decided that they wanted to, guess who decided that, they want to sit there and be Mr. Trump's cheerleader? If you're in South Carolina and you're watching this, that's right, your senator, Lindsey. All right, so let's try it again. Because like I said, we mentioned, not to get completely sidetracked, guys, but here's what I want y'all to do. If y'all have this, if you don't have this at home, don't worry about it. If you do have this at home, if you have alcohol at home, be safe about what I'm about to suggest. Every time my camera freezes, take a shot. Now, I say this with the utmost care. If you know your alcohol content, please don't overshoot it. Don't sit there and be like Trump and take this as a challenge. Because like I said, I have a theory, and I wouldn't want to take a poll on this, but I have a theory that every time we shout out Trump or we do a Trump story, technology decides to take a nosedive. So again, guys, like I said, take a shot if you have alcohol. If you don't, it's okay. But pretty much, like I said, be careful. I don't want you guys to really overdo it and go from there. So as I'm bringing up this story, like I said, Senator Lindsey Graham has decided upon himself that he is going to go ahead and introduce a legislation that basically, and I actually can pull this up. Yeah, because he wants to introduce legislation along the same lines as the proposed executive order, which is funny because he said this a few hours after Trump turned around and sat there and made the stupid claim that, yes, he can go ahead and change the amendment, and realizing, no, he cannot. So what's actually going on with the situation is that he's basically trying to circumvent, and he can't do it, simply put, because it's not possible. And, I've always sat there and said, you can keep trying if you want to. But again, with Graham, if anybody is not familiar with Graham, this isn't the first time Graham has done something like this. Graham has literally sat there and, for lack of better words, has tried to appeal to Trump's nature. Now, why has he appealed to Trump's nature? Simply put, because he is trying to basically make sure he has a job. So, And it's kind of funny where it's like we all have that one brown noser at work, that one brown noser that goes back and tells everybody's business supervisor, snitch. And right now, Graham is basically being the snitch slash bootlicker. So let me actually show you this story here, because I think this is actually interesting. Like I said, this is about basically Graham introducing legislation. So let's hope this plays.
Is set to challenge a 150-year-old constitutional standard that anyone born in America is an American citizen. Angelica Alvarez has the latest on the planned executive order.
President Trump is preparing to challenge a 150-year-old constitutional standard that anyone born in America becomes an American citizen. The president told the political news site Axios that he plans to sign an executive order to, quote, remove the right to citizenship for babies of non-citizens and unauthorized immigrants born on U.S. soil.
Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous.
The 14th Amendment, passed after the Civil War, specifically states all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens.
The president did not offer any timetable on when he would sign the order, which would almost certainly be challenged in the courts.
I think it's a pretty legally dubious claim, but he says, no, I've got people that say I can. And by the way, he has stacked the courts with a lot of conservatives, and I think some of his confidence might come from that.
The Trump administration is also launching a major military operation on the U.S.-Mexico border to prevent a caravan of refugees from entering the U.S. As part of Operation Faithful Patriot, the Pentagon is sending more than 5,200 troops to the southwest border, in addition to the more than 2,000 National Guard already deployed there. The president said last night he also plans tent cities to hold immigrants while they apply for asylum in the U.S. Angelica Alvarez, CBS News, the White House.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is responding to the order on Twitter. He says he's always supported immigration reform and the elimination of birthright citizenship. He continued saying he plans to introduce similar legislation along the same lines as the proposed executive order. Now, this is a developing story, and we will continue to follow the latest on air and online at WLTX.com.
So what's interesting about that is Lindsey Graham is the cheerleader, but he's also working the balls, jerking the shaft, and pretty much saying, please, Mr. Trump, I would like some more. And Trump, I know a lot of you guys, as you watch that video, and you heard him sit there and say, and I wish I could make this up, he turns around and says, a person with a baby comes into the U.S. and the baby is an American citizen. That's a problem. Okay, let me repeat that. He sat there and said, a parent brings a child into the U.S. and the child is a U.S. citizen, and that's a problem. He goes, we're the only country that does that. And I was there go, no, we're not. Canada, Mexico, Spain, Italy, Australia, Germany, Poland, Finland, New Zealand, Scotland, Ireland, and about 45 different other nations all do the same thing. I'm not calling Mr. Nationalist misinformed, but I think he's trying to sit there, and again, he doesn't do facts well. He can lie his ass off, but he can't do facts well. So that whole thing is where, again, going back to the 14th Amendment, if it was removed, that affects us all. Because there's no grandfathered in with that. But at the same time, he thinks he can do it. And I'm thinking to myself as I sat there and watched that, and I was along the lines of just, how in the blue hell can an individual like that honestly think he can get away with it? I mean, it is the Trump effect. Let's just be honest. It is the Trump effect. I mean, much like the shooter in Pittsburgh who shot up that synagogue and definitely feel for that because a place of worship was a terrorist action. I mean, really it was a hate crime. It was terrorism. It was a hate crime. No sense in South Carolina where Dylan Roof decided to shoot up a black church and kill the members there, even though he was among them. And it's like, and not to mention the guy in Florida who mailed packages of supposed explosives to everybody Trump has mentioned in his speeches. And I know a lot of people, as they talk about that, is arguing that, again, and I posted this on my own Facebook. I have sat there and said, Trump may have not been the individual that put the gun in those shooters' hands, or may not put the bomb in that guy's hands who sent all those packages off to different people. He merely created the environment in which they sat there and flourished. That's my problem, because Trump has yet to turn around and accept his responsibility. When he sat there and said the media was the enemy, was it not maybe about 2 weeks later, an individual went into a news station and killed 4 journalists? Was it not a journalist that went to one of his rallies that was with CNN, literally got beat down by Trump representatives, and Trump sat there and was like, well, he probably deserved it. I mean, it gets to a point. I mean, even the most absurd story about a passenger on a plane groped a woman's breast and said it was okay because the president said it was okay. So he may have not put the idea in each of these idiots' heads about what to do, but he created the environment in which they flourish. And the thing about that is, he will never, I mean, people keep on saying the president needs to accept responsibility. Look at Mr. Nationalist. When's the last time he accepted responsibility? He doesn't see his kid half the time. And I feel bad for his child. I really do, because, you're the son of the village idiot. I'm not saying you have an exceptionally low bar, but I'm saying, kid, unless you come out and cure cancer, you're not gonna get out from your dad's shadow, and I feel sorry for you. But it's the whole thing is what I was saying about Trump is just that he creates this toxic rendering environment. And I have never seen so many people come up and sit there and say, well, it's not his fault. Well, it's not him, it's the person, but the person is listening to him. That would be like if I sat there as a black man and told every black man to basically come together and attack the first white guy you see wearing a Trump hat. Would that not mean that I am stoking a situation to where others will hear me come together, and the next thing you know, there's a group of black men that are beating down white people for wearing MAGA hats? Of course I would be responsible, because I'm the one that instituted the actual environment that people are jumping into. So of course I would be responsible. Like I said before, freedom of speech allows you to say whatever the hell you want to say. It doesn't absolve you from the actions or consequences of what you say. And Trump is exercising free speech. He's welcome to do it, but he also has to answer for what he's done. Now, eventually he will. I keep hoping Mueller wraps up his investigation, because it sounds like to me it's starting to get that way. But as I said, as we're approaching the midterm elections, before I go on to the next story, guys, if you haven't voted already, please do. Because at this point, you guys see what happens when nothing is done. I mean, you have idiots like this going around doing shit, and we are all sitting there saying, how did we come to this situation? We only came to this situation because of lack of action. And lack of action, again, only means that things are going to get worse. So like I said, if you've already voted, cool. If you haven't, what you waiting for? I mean, early voting for most places ends tomorrow. And if you can't make early voting, then please make it a point to vote on November 6th. Because at this point, I mean, make your voice heard. Because like I said about voting, and I know I can go into the whole thing about voting, but honestly, if voting wasn't so important, why are they trying so hard to make it hard for you to go ahead and care, much less actually do it? But that's my little rant on voting, because like I said, if you haven't done it by now, wake the fuck up and do it. But speaking of other stories, like I said, I was going to bring this up. Couldn't find any video on it. So I know I spoke about a week ago about Ford actually laying off workers because of the tariffs. Again, for all those who don't know what tariffs are taxes on imported goods, whether imported or domestic. And because Trump basically raised taxes on goods, other countries have raised Trump's tariffs on us, which have hit the auto industry. Ford is already reportedly letting go of 65,000 workers General Motors, as of today, has reported that they're going to they're going to offer buyouts to 18,000 workers. So again, that's 18,000 workers who are going to basically get the remainder of their salary for this year. But after that, they no longer have a job, only because General Motors is getting hit with tariffs. And honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing. This is the reason why when people sit there and say our economy is doing great, it's not doing great. It really isn't. The Dow, the actual stock market is actually still on a downtrend. It hasn't recovered for quite some time. Businesses are closing up because either some of them can't afford to pay the workers or their profits are so low that they have to close up shop. I mean, you see with Toys R Us, except now the Toys R Us has basically been saved from bankruptcy and they're now rebranding, but it doesn't mean that it's actually saved. That's actually the last cut measure. You see it with Ford, as far as Ford letting go of people. You see with General Motors, as far as General Motors letting go of people. You see air conditioning companies like Train, the same company that was used as a marketing ploy for Trump has now closed its doors and its jobs moved overseas. Why? Cheaper labor. I mean, the thing about these tariffs is it's not just simple fact of taxes. It actually makes things to compete. And General Motors can't really compete because, like I said, profits across the board. If you're a corporation, it's Christmas for you. If you're below the 100K line as far as income, it is harder for you. I mean, I'm in that same boat with you. When it comes to the middle and lower class, it is just right now. I'm gonna tell you, it used to be low, middle, and then you got the top percent. What you have right now is a line, and that line is basically 100K. Some of us are above it, some of us are below it. For all those that are below it, I labeled us. I labeled us the working poverty because you are working just enough to be broke. You're working just enough to be considered borderline impoverished. So again, we are the walking poverty. But again, under Trump's world, as they try to make you think about it, they try to make it look like everything's okay. Things are working up. We are getting Americans back to work, but truly you're getting Americans out of work. And I don't know about you guys, but unless you guys have actually seen a lot more on your paychecks, I know I haven't, but I don't know anybody who does. So I can't sit there and say beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're actually winning when really we're not. And if anything, this should actually tell you a lot of where we're coming from on that. Now, aside from that story, I know a lot of this is doom and gloom. I apologize for that. So I actually have something fun. And what I mean by fun is that I think a lot of y'all will probably like this. And I say it like this because I think it's funny. It's funny to me. Now, it'll be funny. I hope for some of y'all it'll be funny to you. So if you have been seeing this, and I'll blow this up so you guys can see it. So I know you see Kanye West, and I know a lot of y'all were like, well, but the son bitch was talking about supporting Trump, and he was acting a fool and shucking and jiving at the White House. Well, Kanye has decided that basically I've been used, I've been hoodwinked, I've been bamboozled, I've been run amok. No, Negro, you still in the sunken place. You just decided that you realized that it didn't work out for you, or your Yeezys didn't sell as well as you thought they would. But he pretty much sit there and says, because him and Candace Owens, if you don't know who Candace Owens is, I like to call her the Black Tommy Lauren. She basically handles I won't say an alt-right site. It's more like extreme conservative America Matters. If you heard about it, you probably know that. But her and Kanye were trying to do this movement they called the Blexit movement. Now, Blexit is by far the dumbest ass movement I ever heard of. If you don't know what Blexit is pretty much in Candace's Kanye's world, that black people are on the Democratic plantation, and that Blexit was our exodus to free thinking, as if they're trying to say the Democrats always have our vote. Sorry, guys. So very much, and like I said, here you go. If you're taking a shot by now, we're on 3. So pretty much in this case, the Blexit movement is really a bullshit movement. Like Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and White Lives Matter, all bullshit movements. Blexit is just a black version of that, in which Candace Owens is trying to get people to think like she does. And here's the thing about Candace Owens, for all those that don't know, Candace Owens is pretty much an opportunist. That's all she is. She realized that if you say what the white people want you to say, then of course you have a shot. Then of course they're going to push you. It happened with Diamond and Silk, those two heifers that Donald Trump took on his campaign. Those two heifers that went from place to place talking about we gonna vote for Trump. And like I said, that's really Sambo. That's really Sambo and Shawshoe. And what annoys me so is that Kanye, when he first came out, was also on the same goddamn boat. And it amazes me so that Kanye, aside from him apparently marrying a whore and then, having 3 kids by her, but that's, that's his choice. I'm not judging him for that. But I'm saying that, since he's not off his meds, has decided that he doesn't want to be a part of this because he doesn't want to be used. It's kind of funny he didn't say that when he was in the White House with Trump, and he was there talking about, I just think that we need to get prison reform, we need to get jobs, we need to be able to help black people. Trump is sitting there smiling at you like, go on and dance, boy. Go on and dance to these people. Let them know that you mine. I didn't mean to sound like Django Unchained, but it's true. Because all Trump did was sit there and listen to him as Kanye made an ass out of himself supporting the president. And of course now it's like I just want to say Kanye's still in the sunken place. I still say Kanye's still in the sunken place because of how he acts. It's almost like 90% of the time he is literally doing what they tell him to do. But for maybe in one moment of clarity, like someone just hit him with a flash, he just wakes the fuck up and he goes, oh, this is not me. No, I did not ask for this, until they put him back under again. So that's why I always say with Kanye West, he's still in the sunken place. He's probably on volume 15 or 16 by now. But the whole thing about him is just that it goes back to what I said about these bullshit movements. And with these bullshit movements, they always seem to get enough buzz to where they distract us. And Blexit shouldn't distract us. Like I said, it's a bullshit movement. I've always sat there and said in many of these podcasts, especially with this one, that it's a whole thing of staying informed. And by staying informed, you have to do your own research. I mean, the internet is full of information, trust me, but it's also full of false information. So the only way you know exactly what's truth versus what not the truth is to really go out there and do it. I mean, all of us at this point, almost everybody has a smartphone. So a smartphone can help you with finding information. So there really is no excuse as to why you're not out there and looking into basically everything, question everything, because that's how we get individual thought. And that's actually how we grow. But we always can't, expect CNN or MSNBC or God help us Fox News to sit there and tell you the truth. You have to do that for yourselves. But in Kanye's place, Kanye is just going to go, he has his moments of where he just goes what he's told with. And then when he realizes Yeezys and God-forsaken clothes ain't selling, then he wants to act like, oh, I was wrong about all this, or I was used. But, for all those that are Kanye fans, well, you're probably not going to like half the stuff I just said. But hey, truth is true. So, moving forward, and I hate to report this, but it's got to be reported. Megyn Kelly, as I like to call her, the blueprint of how to get ahead at Fox and somehow get an NBC by replacing 2 brown and black people because, if you're white, it's all right. But if you're black and you're speaking the truth, you get canceled. C _ every black sitcom that try to speak some real shit. But if you're not aware of what Megyn Kelly has done, let me play this because that way you guys will see exactly where I'm coming, where exactly we're going to go into that before we get from there. So you'll see why I'm reporting this.
But what is racist? Because
truly, you do get in trouble if you are a white person who puts on blackface for Halloween, or a black person who puts on whiteface for Halloween. Like, back when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up as like a character.
I'm Megyn Kelly, and I want to begin with 2 words. I'm sorry. I defended the idea, saying as long as it was respectful and part of a Halloween costume, it seemed okay. Well, I was wrong, and I am sorry.
NBC's Megyn Kelly issued an apology tonight to her staff after she defended the idea of wearing blackface for Halloween.
While she apologized to the staff, she owes a bigger apology to folks of color around the country, because this is a history going back to the 1830s. Minstrel shows to demean and denigrate a race wasn't right.
There was some criticism yesterday online that this was political correctness run amok. That's silly, and it's disingenuous, and it's just as ignorant and racist as the statement itself.
Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa, you know? And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. For me, the fact that an offhand jest I made during a segment about whether Santa should be replaced by a penguin has now become a national firestorm says 2 things. Race is still an incredibly volatile issue in this country, and Fox News and yours truly are big targets.
So guys, I wish I could make this up, but I've said it once and I'll say it again. Megyn Kelly is the epitome of white privilege. And the thing about white privilege is, white privilege, for those who are under white privilege, never see oppression. They never do. They don't understand what oppression is. They feel like their opinion is that of the world. And so because of the world, they feel inclined to say it. So Megyn Kelly said that there was nothing wrong with a white person being in blackface, a white person doing blackface, as long as it was a Halloween costume, it was in character. Yeah. And I know for a lot of you guys, y'all know what Megyn Kelly before she moved over to MSNBC, she was part of Fox. And like I said, the whole thing about Santa Claus just being white, that's just that's really tip of the iceberg for her. Like, truth be told, that's honestly like if it was in range of comments, that was the lightest one they could find for her. I mean, let's not forget the fact that she argued with D.L. Hughley about pretty much defending cops from killing black men like it was open deer season, by the way. But here's the reason why I say I'm bringing this about Megyn Kelly, because there's also other outlets about her. Her and MSNBC are splitting ways. She wanted the full contract, in which she had a contract for $60 million. She was going to sell for $50, and NBC, which owns MSNBC, came back and said, "Kick rocks." So what's been reported about 3 hours ago was that she'll sign a confidentiality agreement with NBC for $10 million, which basically means that you're going to take your $10 million and you're going to shut the fuck up. So who knew that it would take money to shut up a racist? But here's the problem with this story, because it doesn't end the way I would hope for it to end, because I thought immediately she was going to go back to Fox News and, resume her post. Oh, no. It seems in this case, and I hate to say this, just like Tom Brady, she may actually join The View. And for all those that know what The View is, that's ABC. So I'm thinking to myself the entire time, only white people can have the ability to fuck up at a job, get paid for leaving said job, and then pick up another job almost in the same week. It's like, how the hell do you get that far? And what I love about this is, like, The View sat there, the execs at The View said this, and it was quoted: they want her as a full-time host. Execs are very hot on the idea. They think she would be able to keep up with Whoopi Goldberg and keep her in check. They think it would be a blockbuster idea to have her. Keep Whoopi Goldberg in check. Oprah couldn't do that on The Color Purple. What makes you think a white woman's gonna be able to do that to her? I'm just saying. But but what I find so interesting, and like I said, this is why I say a lot what's wrong as far as our country goes is just that white privilege is out there because it's saving white people from jobs. It's saving Megyn Kelly because, like I said, only Megyn Kelly can do a racist remark on one network, get paid for leaving said network, and then more than likely about to get hired on another network for literally, it's almost like, oh, well, it's NBC. We're ABC. We don't care what you're on NBC. Just come on over because you're a brand, even though you're a toxic brand. But, it's almost in the same sense. Like I was there and said, let me blow up and have a show like her. And I say something crazy like, most Caucasians fear black people, but they secretly want to be us. So they emulate our style, emulate our persona. They very much try to be us, but they keep us down because they know the one day that if we ever did come unite us, then we may do exactly what they did to us. And they're fucking terrified because of it. If I said that, oh, imagine the firestorm that would come from that. Imagine, William must be a racist. Black people aren't racist, we're prejudiced. White people are racist. But white people don't get to call racism because you are basically the epitome of it for some of your attitudes. Now, I will say, not all white folks. Like I said, for the white folks that don't get mad and understand, you're still invited to the cookout. You're good. But for everybody else, if you get offended, then it was meant for you. But it's amazing to me how Megyn Kelly can somehow, much like a fucking cat, can still find her feet at a network and still get paid. Although she, like I said, she's the epitome of white privilege. But again, to give you some balance to that, and I want to bring this story up too. This is probably gonna be the last thing I bring before we wrap it up. But this is what I was talking about Megyn Kelly saying something and literally finding her footing. So Don Lemon from CNN, I call him woke Don Lemon because I don't know what happened that New Year's Eve when he got lit. It's almost like a switch flipped and Don Lemon became woke Don Lemon, and that dude has just been, I'm not going to say amazing, but it's almost on the lines like, you know what? He just sat there and said, I'm going to come in here and say exactly what I want to fucking say, and y'all can deal with it. So he turns around and points out something to me that he's getting a lot of flack for. So I'm just going to let the man say it in his own words.
It's not just Pittsburgh. It's not just the bomber. There was another hate-filled criminal just last week in Kentucky. Another white man, history of violence, custody for shooting and killing 2 African Americans at a grocery store, Kroger's. But what he tried to do was barge into a predominantly black church. He failed. And then he picked a secondary target. He's being investigated for hate crimes. Don Lemon is here right now. We barely had time to cover it because we were distracted by another extremist that was doing bad things in the name of hate.
Yeah. And then now another one. And you have all of them in a row. And, we messaged about this a little bit this weekend. I keep trying to point out to people not to demonize any one group or any one ethnicity, but we keep thinking that the biggest terror threat is something else. Some people who are marching, towards the border like it's imminent. And when the last time they did this, a couple hundred people came and they, most did get into the country. Most of them got tuckered out before they even made it to the border. So we have to stop demonizing program. But go on, Chris. All right.
Good. No. I'm going to do it in the closing. You're making the right point. You're covering the right story, and I appreciate you for that.
All right. See you soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, and the one thing, like I said, boy, Don Lemon, you know what? I used to make fun of you because I didn't think you had the stones to say something. But like I said, whatever they gave you on New Year's Eve, dude, apparently switched you out. And I'm not complaining because you have a point. And I've said it on my Optimus podcast, and I'll gladly say it here. The greatest threat to America is a radicalized white man. And honestly, I'll go one step further. The greatest threat to America is a white man who feels like he's oppressed. And again, it amazes me so Don Lemon is catching fire from, of course, conservative groups. Conservative groups have sat there and came forward and said, well, that's insulting to white men. Really? So, what was your complaints when Muslim religion was being connected to terrorists? When Sharia law was being thrown around, when the first black president was about to be elected, and y'all swore up and down that honestly he was an undercover Muslim and that he was forcing the entire nation to go Muslim. I didn't see you guys standing up for that. I didn't see you guys standing up when Michelle Obama was called everything under the sun, but an intelligent, gorgeous black woman. I didn't see you doing anything under the sun when the president was trying to get shit done like universal health care and you guys wanted to demonize him. But it is amazing to me that a white man can, it's a funny thing about white men, and you can take this any way you want to, but almost every terrorist, shooting, bombing, things of that nature that has happened in the last year and a half was done by a white man. Look them up. Las Vegas, Miami, the Pulse nightclub, Sandy Hook. Oh God, I can keep going. Like before Sandy Hook, actually, I'm sorry, past Sandy Hook, the next 4 school shootings after that, then the nightclub shooting. Then at this point, what do you have now? A man in Kentucky shoots 2 black people only because he wanted to. That's a hate crime. You have another individual in Florida who was so radicalized by Trump that he sent out explosives to all people Trump has said. And at the same time, you have a Supreme Court justice who literally, allegedly, although I believe he did assault Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, but he's on the Supreme Court now because, for a judge, he didn't matter how he got there. He wanted to get there, even though there is a chance that he may have allegedly sexually assaulted people. And that just speaks volume about the message you're sending forward. All of these white men. So I give Don Lemon the most dangerous, and Chris Rock said it best. And Chris Rock said it best to one of his specials. He says, Chris Rock said, I'm not afraid of Al-Qaeda. I'm afraid of Al-Qaeda. So again, be mad all you want to, but the evidence is there. It's like radicalization. It's always funny how a white person will sit there and point out a brown person's religion, but a white person is the one that has that always has the access, the weapons, the know-how, but they'll always have an excuse for their actions. Dylan Roof, when he killed those black parishioners in South Carolina, oh, he was just troubled and needed help. Really? What about the police officer that shot black men unassisted, unarmed? What about you can go to the list. Every shooting that was justified, every shooting that swore up and down the police were justified, killing an unarmed black man. And have we learned from history? No. We have a president that's about to send a shitload of troops to a group of unarmed people who are literally trying to escape oppression. But yet we're a country of immigrants led by an idiot who would rather be oppressive and fascist than open. But again, be mad at me if you want to, but I agree. The most dangerous threat in America is a radicalized white man, because yet you depend on the minority to save your ass. Call it what you will. Now I know on this notice leaves you some doom and gloom, but honestly, guys, at the end of it all, this is exactly what's wrong. I mean, aside from how the frack we got here, this is honestly what's wrong. When you have a radicalized group of nationalists, racists that have control over a lot of shit, they're always the ones that are going to sit there and tell you what's wrong because they believe it's what's wrong. They will reiterate lies instead of truth until they become truth because no one else will question it. They'll sit there and put in people who would rather vote for their own pockets than for your own self. And at the same time, you're in the middle of it all, wondering why everything's going up but your paycheck, and you're still struggling. So again, not to sound like a pretty much like a broken record or a broken CD, but we have to be that change. And I know as much as I don't like reporting about Trump or don't like reporting about these stories need to be heard. So it does come from a place of staying informed, which is the whole point of this podcast, is to inform those so you can go out and find that truth and do the same thing. And if we all come together and stay informed, you can make a hell of a lot better decisions, because an uninformed group actually is what got us here. So we're going to end it there for that. Thank you guys for all watching. Thank you, Angie and BJ. Thank you guys for commenting. And I know I saw Vaughn pop in there somewhere. I know you're probably working back and forth too, so hope they're all as well. So some shameless plugs before we get out, before we call it a night on this. And I know on Halloween night, if you're full of candy, or you give away candy, or you're just waiting to go to Walmart the next day to get half off on candy, kudos. But aside from my podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, I also have the Off Limits podcast, which is every Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. My buddy Vaughn, who's also here, also has his own podcast as well. He has the I Get That Reference BST podcast. He has the Rhythmness, where you reminisce over the rhythm, where he goes over albums as far as giving his opinion on whether or not to his own tier system. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle BZ, where pretty much he brings up videos and questions that are just really just off-the-wall topics and interactive, just like my shows are. Aside from that, my other buddy Trace has The Bump Down, which is also a musical show where he goes over what's hot on charts and what's not, what's happening in the mainstream and the underground. And he also explains a lot about the recording industry. And like I've been telling folks about that podcast, I learned more about how the recording industry works through his podcast than I ever did. And like I said, very informative conversation, very informative brother. Would definitely recommend to actually watch those. And also we have our other buddy, Sir Thomas, which he did ask, and I know he's not here with me right now, but he did ask as he's coming up with his podcast, if you do have names for his podcast, which is going to be of the exercise kind, because, if you follow his Facebook, the man stays in the gym like almost damn near every day. Not knocking him. He's working. He's got a goal. Can't knock him for that. But he's also asking for suggestions on his podcast, what to do. And also, like I said, all of our podcasts can be found in the Facebook group. I Get That Reference, and it's a group that you can join, as it's welcome to all. The only request that we have is that you're active. So if you're sharing things, if you're responding to people, if you're just basically being social, that's all we ask you to do. And also at the same time, we do have our podcast on YouTube. If you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up Off Limits Podcast, if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up The Bump Down, all of those are actual YouTube pages where you can like, share, and subscribe to where we upload every podcast up to date so you can watch it. And be able to go from there. Like I said, always share with your friends and family. Because like I said, we're trying to reach as many people as we can, because we're trying to promote basically being informed versus, entertainment, yes, because I know sometimes I say stuff that's funny. Sometimes Bob and Trish say stuff that's funny. But the overall point about it is that we're trying to be more informative. But aside from, like I said, the whole point of How the Frack We Got Here is to basically stay informed. So as long as you're doing it, so as long as I'm able to inspire and hopefully inspire others to go out and find their truth, and by doing so, you inspire us to do that, then we become the informed society that can make the change. But aside from that, guys, like I said, thank you all for watching. Hopefully this mid-election year, I hope things change. Like I said, if you voted, cool. If not, what you waiting for? Because you don't ever want to be at the point to where they take it from you. But again, guys, have a good night. This has been How the Frack We Got Here. I've been Will Buchanan. Peace.